Stop looking outside for what you can only fix inside. That's the truth few accept. It doesn't matter if you change jobs, partners, or cities. If your mind remains disordered, nothing will truly change. The strength you're searching for isn't in what you possess or achieve. It's in how you control what you think and feel. Whoever masters their mind masters their life. We live surrounded by distractions and excuses. We're taught to blame the environment, the boss, the traffic, the family, fate. But while you blame, you surrender control of your life. The Stoics were clear. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust the sails. It's time to stop being a victim of every emotion and start training your character to stand firm, even when everything around you wobbles. Controlling the mind isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about reclaiming the power you gave to anger, fear, and anxiety. It means to stop reacting like an automatic reflex and start deciding each response clearly. You don't need complicated rituals. You need discipline and willpower to not give in to your own impulses. This video is for those who are tired of living at the mercy of mental chaos. Here there are no magic formulas or hollow motivational phrases. You'll find daily practices that will force you to face your inner disorder and shape it into strength. Because if you manage to train your mind, nothing and no one will be able to break you. 1. Wake up without distractions. Stop starting the day as if you were a servant to notifications. Every morning, most people open their eyes, and the first thing they look for is their phone. They check messages, social media, news they can't change, and videos that only fill the mind with noise. It's as if they wake up to serve others chaos before attending to their own peace. If you want to train your mind, the first battlefield is the moment you wake up. The start of the day sets the tone of your mind. If you start it with distractions, you spend the rest of the day reacting. If you start it with direction, you move forward with control. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote every morning to remind himself how he wanted to live that day, not to distract himself. And if an emperor found time to focus before facing an empire, what excuse do you have not to do it? Waking up without distractions doesn't mean you ignore the world. It means you decide when you're going to let it in. Your first minutes should be yours, not of the external noise. Get up and leave the phone far away. Don't check networks, don't answer messages, don't throw yourself into the whirlwind of pending tasks. Start with something that centers you. Breathe deeply, drink water, feel the ground under your feet, look out the window, and remember that you are alive. These small gestures are not a waste of time. They are training for your mind, so it learns to obey you instead of dragging you. Discipline begins here. Resist the urge to seek distractions as soon as you open your eyes. This simple act teaches you self-control. It reminds you that you're in charge, not your anxiety to be connected. Plus, it gives you space to think about what really matters today. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be in these next hours? How do I want to react to the inevitable? What am I not going to allow to steal my energy? You might think these are small details, but the mind is shaped in the details. Every time you give in to the impulse to pick up the phone when you wake up, you strengthen the habit of reacting without thinking. Every time you decide to postpone it and take those minutes for yourself, you strengthen the muscle of self-control. And while others start the day with noise and rush, you start it with clarity. True mental strength doesn't start in grand speeches or moments of crisis. It starts in quiet habits. If you can't master the first 5 minutes of your morning, you'll hardly master the challenges of your day. Train your mind from the moment you wake up, and you'll find that the rest of the day stops dragging you. Because the one who takes ownership of their mornings takes ownership of their character. 2. The power of the pause. We live in an era where everything demands an immediate response. Messages that require instant replies, opinions that must be given without thinking, impulsive reactions that explode over any comment. This is how many end up saying what they didn't want to say, doing what they shouldn't have done, and carrying guilt that could have been avoided. What few understand is that the real power is not in reacting quickly, but in stopping. The pause, that fraction of silence that seems insignificant, is one of the most powerful weapons to train the mind. The Stoics knew it well. Impulse is a cruel master. Epictetus taught that between what happens and your response, there is always a space, and in that space lies your freedom. But most waste it because they don't know how to stop. They believe that remaining silent for a few seconds is weakness, when in reality, it is the first sign of self-control. Whoever can pause before acting demonstrates that they command themselves. Practicing the pause is more than taking a deep breath. It's re-educating the mind to not be a slave to impulses. Every time someone provokes you, a criticism hits you, or fear wants to drag you, you have a choice: to jump immediately or to take a moment to remember who you want to be. That moment can change the course of an argument, a day, and even your life. Start training it consciously. When you feel something irritates you, don't respond right away. Count to 3 slow breaths. If you are pressured for an answer, say, "Let me think about it for a moment." It's not weakness, it's self-control. Over time, your mind will learn not to ignite with every spark and to maintain calm even in chaos. That is real strength, maintaining direction in the midst of the storm. The habit of the pause also serves for important decisions. Many times we regret not what we chose, but how quickly we did it. The pause allows us to see more clearly what is under our control and what is not, and saves us from regrets born out of haste. Marcus Aurelius advised examining each impression before believing it or acting accordingly. The pause is that examination. It may be difficult at first. The mind is used to reacting like a spring, but each pause you achieve is a blow to the old habit of acting without thinking. It's like stopping the overflowing river and starting to direct its course. You don't need to shout to be strong. You need silence to make good decisions. The next time something provokes you, remember, the power is not in the speed of your response, but in the space you give yourself to choose it. That pause, so brief and so underestimated, is what turns an ordinary man into someone who is master of himself. 3. Train yourself in discomfort. True character is not formed on easy days. It is forged when the body shivers from cold, when the mind wants to give up, and when everything in you begs for comfort. We live in an era that idolizes comfort. Soft beds, air conditioning, fast food, endless distractions at a click. We believe that having everything easy is progress, but in reality, it is a slow poison for the spirit. If you do not train your mind to tolerate discomfort, any setback will break you. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Seneca advised, getting used to poverty even when rich, sleeping on the floor some days, wearing simple clothes, eating the basics. Not because he despised goods, but because he knew that the true owner of his life was the one who could live without depending on them. Today, it is not about living in penury, but about regaining the ability to resist, to teach the mind that it does not need luxuries to stand firm. Start with small but intentional gestures. Get up earlier than you like, endure a few minutes of cold water at the end of the shower, set aside the coffee you drink out of habit and not out of necessity. These acts are not punishments, they are training. Each chosen discomfort strengthens the muscle of discipline, reminds you that you can endure more than you think, and removes the fear of lack. When you train in discomfort, you give a clear lesson to your mind. Pleasure does not rule over you. You decide when and how to seek it. This prepares you for unexpected days when life takes something away from you. Whoever has tasted voluntary cold does not fear so much when winter comes. Whoever has learned to tolerate hunger from time to time does not collapse when the banquet fails. That is the essence of self-control, not to depend on what you do not control. In addition, discomfort forges humility. It reminds you that you are more resilient than you imagine, and that well-being is not measured by what you own, but by what you can endure without losing your peace. Mental strength is built like a callus on the hands, with friction, with resistance, with constant practice. Many flee from discomfort because they believe it makes them unhappy, but true unhappiness comes from being fragile. When everything bothers you and everything overwhelms you, you live prisoner to circumstances. On the other hand, when you learn to choose small daily challenges, you develop a mind that does not break with any blow. Remember this: if you only train your mind in comfort, it will become soft. Training it in discomfort does not mean seeking suffering, but forging strength. Each uncomfortable step you take by choice is a victory over fear, a proof that your will weighs more than your desire for comfort. That is the true power you need to face life without breaking. You must be strong. 4. Your power anchor phrase. When the emotional storm hits, most people seek shelter in what they have around them: advice, a distraction, anything that calms them down. The problem is that there will not always be someone nearby or something to cling to. That's when you need a silent, small but powerful tool, an anchor phrase. It's not magic or superstition. It's a statement that reminds your mind who's in charge, even when everything seems to crumble. The Stoics used short maxims to stand firm. Marcus Aurelius repeated, "Disturbance does not come from the external, but from what I think about it." Epictetus reminded himself, "It's not the things that hurt us, but our opinions about them." They were not decorative words. They were mental anchors that prevented the mind from sinking in the tide of emotions. Today, you can use the same principle. Choose a phrase that centers you when chaos begins. Your anchor phrase should be brief, forceful, and personal, not something convoluted that you forget in critical moments. It could be, "This will pass, I won't break," or "Nothing external governs my peace," or "I breathe, think, act." It should remind you that you have control of your reaction, not the facts. Every time you repeat it, you're not running away from the problem. You're ordering your mind to return to the axis. Practicing it is as important as choosing it. It's no use just saying it when you're already on the brink of collapse. Repeat it in your daily routine, when you wake up, while you walk, before a difficult conversation. Make your mind know it by heart, so that at the time of crisis, it arises automatically, like a trained reflex. It's like sharpening a sword. You don't wait for the battle to do it. The strength of an anchor phrase is not in the words themselves, but in the commitment you make with them. Each time you pronounce it, you are reminding yourself of your purpose, your self-control, and your strength. It's a reminder that, although you can't change the wind, you can hold the helm firmly. It's your way of not letting the emotion of the moment make decisions for you. At first, it may seem useless, but over time you will notice the change. The mind that has an anchor does not drown so easily. It learns to resist the current of destructive thoughts, to curb anxiety before it grows, to calm anger before it explodes. It's an invisible but decisive training. When others lose their heads to problems, you will have your anchor phrase, that silent order that stops the internal storm. Because sometimes, all you need to stand up is not a grand speech, but a few words that remind you that you're still in charge. 5. Let go of what you can't control. Few things wear down the mind as much as fighting against the inevitable. We spend hours, days, and even years trying to twist situations that do not depend on us, other people's opinions, the weather, the past, the attitude of others. It's like rowing against the current of an infinite river. You end up exhausted, frustrated, and without progress. The Stoics warned that this is the biggest trap of the mind, wasting energy on what was never in our hands. Seneca said that we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. This happens because we try to control the thoughts and actions of others. We fear futures that may never come, and we blame ourselves for things that can no longer be changed. Living like this is like carrying stones on your back that don't belong to us. True strength is not to resist with more weight, but to learn to let it go. Let go of what you can't control. It may sound simple, but it's a daily training. It means accepting that you won't be able to prevent others from criticizing you, that there will be injustices, that not everything will go as planned. Acceptance is not surrender. It's recognizing that your power lies in your response, not in the fact itself. This acceptance frees up mental space and gives you clarity to act where you can influence. Think about how many times your peace has been ruined by something as simple as traffic, a malicious comment, or a memory from the past. None of these things change because you get angry or regret. The only thing that changes is your mood, which becomes a prisoner of what you can't alter. Every minute you spend battling against the immutable is a minute you could invest in strengthening what is under your control, your character, your habits, your reaction. Practicing this advice is like cleaning a room full of useless objects. Start by asking yourself, does this depend on me or not? If the answer is no, let it go immediately. If it is yes, act firmly. Each time you do this exercise, you will be honing your ability to discern, which is the basis of self-control. This is how you learn to focus your energy on what really builds something. Freeing yourself from this unnecessary struggle does not mean that you don't care about anything. On the contrary, it allows you to put all your effort where you can make a difference. In your effort, in your persistence, in your own behavior. That's what distinguishes a disciplined mind from an exhausted mind. Whoever lives trying to dominate the external ends up dominated by their frustration. Whoever lets go of what they can't control regains their strength to resist, adapt, and keep moving forward. This is the essence of Stoic serenity, not needing the world to change to be at peace. Because true power is not to conquer the storm, but to learn to navigate under its reign without sinking. 6. The minute of gratitude. Most people wake up thinking about what's missing, the overwhelming job, the worrying bill, the uncomfortable conversation that will have to be had. As soon as they open their eyes, their mind is already caught up in outstanding debts and problems to solve. This is how they start the day, with the weight of an invisible chain. But there is an exercise as brief as it is powerful that the Stoics knew well: to stop, even if only for a single minute, to appreciate what one already has. It may seem naive in a world that runs without breaks, but gratitude is not a soft or cheesy gesture. It is a form of mental resistance. Marcus Aurelius, despite carrying wars and plagues in his empire, wrote every morning about the things he valued: the sunlight, the honest people around him, the opportunity to wake up one more day to fulfill his duty. This habit gave him a center, a reason to stand firm when everything else was uncertain. The minute of gratitude is a training for the mind because it breaks the pattern of automatic complaint. You don't need to sit in absolute silence or close your eyes for hours. 60 seconds upon waking or before sleeping is enough. Think about 3 things that, although small, make your life more bearable. A roof over your head, someone who listens to you, your ability to learn, even your own breathing. These are details that we often take for granted until we lose them. Practicing it every day teaches you to direct your attention, and where your attention goes, your energy goes. The undisciplined mind focuses on deficiencies and multiplies anxiety. The mind trained in gratitude learns to see resources where others only see problems. It doesn't mean ignoring difficulties. It means not allowing them to overshadow all the good that already exists. A single minute of gratitude a day can change the way you face challenges. This brief exercise acts as an emotional anchor that reminds you that not everything is lost, that there are reasons to keep going, even in the midst of chaos. Over time, you will realize that it is not the world that becomes kinder, but your gaze that stops being so hostile. Make gratitude a practical habit. Place it at the end of your morning routine or when turning off the light at night. Don't do it out of politeness or superstition. Do it for mental hygiene. The mind that gives thanks strengthens itself against despair because it learns to recognize that there is always something to salvage. In a world that pushes to complain and compete, being thankful is an act of silent rebellion. Don't wait to lose everything to realize what you had. Dedicate a minute today to acknowledge it, and your mind will begin to train in the serenity that the Stoics defended, that of finding value even in the simplest things. 7. Learn to say no. One of the reasons why so many people live exhausted is not due to lack of time, but due to lack of boundaries. They say yes to everything, to the favor they didn't want to do, to the meeting they're not interested in, to the message they didn't need to respond to the plan that interrupts their rest. Each yes given out of obligation is a silent thief of mental energy. And there is no mind that can be trained if it spends its life surrendering to the demands of others. The Stoics understood that taking care of one's own time is taking care of one's own soul. Seneca wrote, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste a lot, and much of that waste comes from not daring to say no. We believe that denying something is being selfish, when in reality, it is an act of respect for our attention, our rest, and our purpose." Learning to say no is not about rejecting everyone, but about having clarity about what deserves your energy. Every time you say yes to what you don't want, you are actually saying no to yourself. The result is resentment, tiredness, and dispersion. A scattered mind will never be strong. It lives reacting to what others expect from it. Start training this habit in everyday life. When you receive an invitation that doesn't bring you anything, allow your first response to be a pause, not an automatic acceptance. If someone asks for your help, but you know that doing so will break your balance, express it firmly and respectfully. "I can't right now." That phrase, simple but direct, is a shield against the overload that weakens the mind. At first, you will feel discomfort, especially if you are used to pleasing. Guilt will whisper to you that you are disappointing others, but what you are really doing is honoring your limits. Mental strength is not about enduring everything, but about discerning which burdens are yours and which are not. Learning to say no is a training for your character because it forces you to consciously choose instead of giving in impulsively. In addition, each well-placed no opens space for a yes that does matter, to your rest, to your family, to your goals, to your mental health. This exercise transforms the quality of your attention. You stop living trapped in empty commitments and regain the freedom to focus on the essential. Remember that whoever doesn't know how to say no becomes a slave to others' calendar. A strong mind does not allow the will of others to dictate every decision. Saying no is not closing yourself off to the world. It's opening up to a more coherent and less reactive life. Because in the end, training the mind is not just about meditating or reading philosophy. It's also about protecting it from what scatters it. And sometimes the bravest step you can take for your peace is simply to say no, and that's it. 8. End the day with awareness. Many people finish the day just as they started it, distracted with a mind full of pending tasks, trapped between screens and noise until they fall asleep from exhaustion. They believe that resting is just closing their eyes, but the mind does not rest if it goes to bed with the chaos still on. The difference between a restless mind and a trained mind lies in what you do in the last minutes before sleeping. That end of the day is as important as its beginning. The Stoics practiced a simple and powerful habit, the nightly review. Marcus Aurelius and Seneca dedicated the last moments of the day to examining their actions. They didn't do it to punish themselves, but to learn. They asked themselves, what did I do well today? Where did I fail? How can I improve tomorrow? This small exercise turned each day into a lesson, not a routine that repeats itself senselessly. End the day with awareness. You don't need long hours or complex rituals. Dedicate just a few minutes to yourself before going to bed. Step away from the phone, turn off the noise, sit in silence and review the day as if you were reviewing a book you have just read. Recognize your successes, identify your mistakes, and decide on one thing you will do differently tomorrow. This act teaches you that every day, no matter how difficult it may have been, leaves a lesson you can use. This habit trains the mind in three virtues: gratitude, self-criticism, and direction. Gratitude for what went well, no matter how small. Self-criticism to assume what you did not handle with calm or discipline. Direction to not repeat the same stumbles tomorrow. Little by little, the mind stops wandering aimlessly and begins to move with intention, because every night it is reminded that everything experienced had a purpose. Ending the day with awareness is also a form of liberation. What you don't let go of before sleeping becomes a burden when you wake up. Unresolved tasks, accumulated resentments, mistakes you didn't accept, all of this seeps into your rest and steals energy for the next day. But when you dedicate a few minutes to acknowledge and let go, your sleep stops being an escape and becomes a real rest. Do not underestimate the impact of this exercise. A mind that ends the day with awareness wakes up with greater clarity. It learns not to drag the past into each dawn, to start anew with more calm and focus. Mental strength is not only built by facing big challenges, it is also cultivated in these small acts of internal order. Make this closing a Stoic ritual, brief, honest, constant. Not to punish yourself, but to become a silent teacher each day. Because it's not about how much you live, but how much you learn from what you've lived. Training the mind is impossible if you don't know how to reflect on your steps. And each night is the perfect opportunity to remind yourself that the day has ended, but the lesson continues. 9. Reminders that guide. The mind by itself tends to forget the essentials and focus on what screams the loudest, the urgencies, the complaints, the distractions. That's why it's easy for a day to start with good intentions and end up trapped in old habits, reacting the same as always. It's not about lack of willpower, but lack of reminders. The mind needs visible anchors to show the way when the noise of the day drags it away. The Stoics knew this principle. Epictetus recommended surrounding oneself with signs that reminded of the brevity of life, self-control, and the importance of actions over words. They didn't trust memory or impulse. They used written phrases, symbols, even objects that they kept in sight to not deviate from their values. Today, even though we live surrounded by technology, we can use the same method to train focus. Create your own reminders that guide your character. Place on your desk a phrase that summarizes your goal, like, "I choose to control my reaction," or "do what's necessary, not what's urgent." Set a silent alarm on your phone to remind you 3 times a day to breathe and evaluate what you're thinking. Use a notebook to note every morning the main intention of your day. These simple gestures work like signals in the midst of mental fog. Reminders not only serve to motivate you, they also act as barriers against impulses. For example, if you struggle with procrastination, leave a note in sight with the most important task of the day. If you tend to react with anger, stick the word pause in a visible place to stop the impulse. If you forget to be grateful, put on your bedside table a card with 3 things you will appreciate before going to sleep. They are details, but each one trains the mind to stop and remember who's in charge. At first it will seem unnecessary, but you'll see the change. When fatigue or stress try to divert you, those little reminders will act as an external voice that brings you back to the axis. Over time, you won't depend so much on them, because the habit will be engraved in your character. However, while discipline is being formed, these visual guides are like railings that prevent you from stumbling. Remember that training the mind is not just a matter of great internal speeches, but of designing the environment to work in your favor. If you surround your day with signs that guide you, you reduce the friction of deciding at every moment and reserve your energy for what really matters. A strong mind is not born from perfect memory, but from smart strategies. Reminders are proof that you don't have to fight alone against your weaknesses. You can set traps for forgetfulness and shortcuts to clarity, because in the midst of noise and rush, small reminders become silent guardians of your purpose. 10. Do less, achieve more. Most people believe that mental strength consists of doing more things each day, filling the schedule to the limit, and boasting about how busy they are. But that is not strength, it's chaos, disguised as productivity. An overloaded mind loses clarity, makes worse decisions, and ends up exhausted. The Stoics knew this. It's not about doing a lot, but about doing what's necessary with all your attention. Whoever tries to encompass everything ends up losing the essential. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should focus only on what is useful for virtue and set aside what does not contribute. In other words, do less but do it better. The enemy of calm is not hard work, but scattered work. Every task you accept without a clear purpose is a leak of energy. Every unnecessary commitment is another brick in the wall that separates you from mental peace. Training the mind to do less is an act of courage, because it requires saying no to what others expect from you, giving up distractions disguised as opportunities, and learning to prioritize what's important over what's urgent. Start by reducing your daily list to 3 truly meaningful tasks. Don't try to complete them all at once. Give them quality, not speed. Each time you finish one, you'll feel like you're truly making progress instead of running aimlessly. Doing less also means stopping trying to control all the outcomes. Do your part, give your best in what you do, and let go of what doesn't depend on you. This combination of conscious effort and detachment gives you power, because you stop wasting energy on impossible battles and focus it on what you can move. Thus, what you achieve is not the result of luck, but of clarity. This principle is not an invitation to laziness, but to strategy. Think of an archer. They don't shoot 100 arrows at random hoping that one hits. They aim calmly, choose the moment, and shoot the necessary one. Your mind needs the same approach. Every project, every conversation, every decision should answer the question, does this bring me closer to or further from what matters? When you learn to do less, you rediscover something valuable: space. Space to think, to breathe, to take care of your mental health, and to act with intention. In that space, true discipline arises, because you're no longer running after everything that appears, but moving towards what you chose. Remember, mental strength is not in accumulating tasks, but in having the courage to simplify your life. Do less, but with more attention, with more quality, and with more purpose. In the end, you'll discover that the most solid achievements are not built by running relentlessly, but by walking firmly in the right direction. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. If you watched the whole thing, comment "I am Stoic" as our secret signal to know that you're a true student of Stoicism. Don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. See you in the next video, and remember, keep cultivating your Stoic mind.